Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and our esteemed guests and honorable panelists. My name is Freddy Munyongane, and I'm the academic leader of public law at the School of Law of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the University of KwaZulu-Natal, which is also the home of the African Ombudsman Research Center, otherwise known as AORC. Esteemed guests, we do not take for granted your presence here this morning and your continued support. And for that, we thank you. I appear before you this morning to extend a word of welcome on behalf of the executive management of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Cybersecurity is an issue of great concern for both state and non-state entities alike. Just as hackers and attackers are not resting, institutions around the globe are also working tirelessly to ensure the protection of their systems against any possible cyber attack. In this regard, I wish to commend AORC for organizing this webinar titled Strengthening Cybersecurity in Ombudsman Institutions. Colleagues, this is indeed a timely intervention. Please allow me to extend a special word of welcome to members of the panel of today. We have here with us this morning, not in any particular order, Advocate Kalega, who needs no introduction to all of us. She is currently South Africa's acting public protector and acting chairperson of the African Ombudsman Research Center Board. With her on the panel is Advocate Kevin Malunga. He too needs no introduction. He is South Africa's former deputy public protector. And ladies and gentlemen, this morning, he will be directing the proceedings of our deliberations together. With them on the panel are our two speakers who will give their presentations this morning. We have Professor Manoj Maharaj from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. With him is Professor Sizwe Snail Kamtuze, who hails from the University of Nelson Mandela. Ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues, and esteemed panelists, we welcome you all. To our presenters, we look forward to your presentations this morning. Without any waste of time, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to hand over to South Africa's acting public protector, Advocate Kalega, who is also an alumnus of this institution. Ma'am, welcome to your alma mater, and the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. A very good morning, and I align myself with the protocol that you've already outlined. And thank you to the UKZN family for always making it possible for us to access not only our own resources that you so safely guard, but also to be able to access the world at large, you know, through the support that you provide to us. And to our esteemed facilitator, Advocate Malunga, my predecessor, I'm very excited to have you on the platform, and quite happy that we haven't lost you in the Ombuds family with the rich experience and history of this institution that you carry with you. And to the panelists, a warm welcome to you, and I wish you all of the best. And I know that you are experts in this subject matter, and it's really food for thought that we've been waiting for. I think what really honors me in these platforms that AORC creates is that we don't only access member countries of AOMA, but we've got a number of ombudsmen throughout the globe who actually have congratulated us on the continuous work that AORC has been doing. So colleagues, the information that we share is not just for Africa, but it is for the world in its entirety. You know, the work of an ombudsman is necessarily centered around the needs of citizens, reflecting in particular those without knowledge, power, resources, finances, or access that's required to succinctly deal with government inefficiencies or state inefficiencies, which have a direct or indirect impact on their being. It then follows that developments in investigative practices will to a large extent be determined by the complexities of matters presented to the Ombudsman's offices. With the fourth industrial revolution and even the fifth industrial revolution in the developed countries expressing its dominance around the globe, it is difficult to make any confident predictions on how it will change the world as we know it. This is because the sheer scale and complexity of the 4IR is enormous. Fields such as the artificial intelligence and addictive manufacturing are no longer a thing of the future, but rather an increasing part of everyday life in the form of smart devices, driverless cars, automated assistants, just to name a few examples. This revolution is generally centered on a synthesis between physical and digital technologies. To remain on par with the pace of development, countries are bound to take proactive steps to adequately address the strong impact of the smart industry and its modern technology. The 4IR continues to drastically shape our conversations and influence the considerations around how we may need to adapt or what skills we will need to sustain the workplace of the future, or in this instance, more drastically of the present. It brings with it fast-paced change and an unprecedented digital shift for all sectors, including the institutions of the Ombudsman. Experts such as Vietnam's Dr. Nguyen Thong Giang and Dr. Nguyen My Tri emphasized that insofar as opportunity is concerned, the applications of the 4IR are tools which can, for instance, be used for the expansion of the recognition, promotion, and protection of human rights. By way of example, the right to access information is realized significantly quicker and more fully through the utilization of the internet and with the support of big data. The development of online information systems and social networks, just to name a few. Big data has made it easier to collect and separate data, thus supporting and monitoring discrimination against vulnerable groups. Information about administrative wrongdoing, prejudicial conduct by the state, and human rights violations is also shared more quickly, so that governments, NGOs, and other parties responsible for oversight, such as ombudsman institutions, receive and provide timely support and, naturally, where appropriate, ensure accountability as a result of the wrongdoers being easily exposed. Contemporary technologies, particularly those related to healthcare, providing access to education, can help increase the accessibility of services and drastically improve socioeconomic development indicators. This, in turn, increases the ability of ordinary citizens to enjoy rights such as health, education, entertainment, and even the right to benefit from the development of science and technology. In this context, cybersecurity is more important than ever. Consequently, and perhaps unsurprisingly, a vast number of public and private institutions are being compromised and in some cases profoundly damaged by a range of scams and cyber attacks every year. As we all know that the cyberspace is really described globally in the global domain within the information environment consisting of interdependent network of information systems, infrastructures, including the internet, telecommunications networks, computer systems, and embedded processes and controllers. Now, this transition that we find ourselves in as countries, but more particularly as ombudsmen, because most of these maladministrations and malfeasance within the state affairs now already happen within the cyberspace. What then becomes our capability to be able to meet up with these challenges that we find ourselves in. Now, in the South African context, I think when it comes to legislation, we have moved quite far. However, it is the implementation of that particular legislation and also the skills to be able to investigate these kind of malfeasance within the state affairs which would have taken place. It is thus critical that we arm ourselves as the ombudsman institutions to be able to meet up with the current times. For instance, just in the Office of the Public Protector, should we receive a breach that would have taken place in the form of cybersecurity, we would not be in a position to investigate that matter ourselves because we do not have the expertise, which then determines that we would have to outsource this particular expertise. So it is then critical that as ombudsmen, we then not only start with the information sharing, but we start to capacitate ourselves much deeper in the subject matter. I have gone through the profiles of our esteemed panelists and realized that indeed the knowledge that is going to be shared with us today is going to assist us as ombudsman communities to at least find ourselves in a direction that we need to reflect more on how we capacitate ourselves in this subject matter. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, and to our participants. I see that the numbers are growing, and I hope that we will listen attentively and indeed enrich our minds with the information that will be shared with us. I wish you all of the best. Unfortunately, I will not be able to stay with you for the duration of this webinar, which I would have really, really loved to. This is really my subject matter. I am a student in cybersecurity myself and struggling quite a lot, you know, as it's a bit of a foreign subject, and I would have really benefited from it. Unfortunately, I'm attending a meeting of the Forum of Institutions Supporting Democracy in Cape Town, but I thought I wouldn't miss to welcome the colleagues this morning. Thank you very much, and all of the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Advocate Kalega. I think, yes, I think it's over to me. And I hope everyone can hear me. Sometimes technology just misbehaves. So my name is Kevin Malunga, and obviously I have a history in the area of ombudsmanship. And I just like Advocate Kalega, I am an alumnus of the University of KwaZulu Natal School of Law, and I also taught at the School of Law. So we have a history of contributing to this sector quite substantially. It's been so I'm not trying to put the other law schools down, but I can't help flying our own flag high. So, and of course, indeed, Advocate Kalega has raised very valid issues concerning the cybersecurity concern, and I suspect there is something that's going to be on her table officially, because the Department of Justice had a major breach in South Africa, where money was stolen. Millions were stolen from the Department of Justice, you know, from the I think it was the Guardians Fund, which is a fund for you know, to protect vulnerable people after, you know, in the case of deceased states. So it's very real and very substantial. And every single day I see on my phone, and I think everybody else has the same experience, someone trying to scam you in one way or the other, whether it's some unsolicited call or some unsolicited email, some phishing attempts. So cybersecurity is everybody's problem from what I see. It starts small and really goes big. So what that translates to obviously is the fact that ombudsman's institutions are not immune. But it obviously becomes more embarrassing when the monitor fails to be vigilant. So that's why I think it's important that people who are watching this from the entire continent or wherever they are, I believe this is this is a continent worldwide platform today, that we encourage this kind of vigilance both in our personal and professional capacities. But without further ado, obviously I want to thank Advocate Gcaleka, and of course thank the organizers, thank the Dean of the law school, and of course all the participants. And I just want to start by introducing Professor Manoj Maharaj. And his profile, as you have seen, is that he's a highly respected figure in the School of Management and IT and governance at the University of KwaZulu Natal. And he's got a very remarkable career spanning over 30 years in academia and the IT sector. And he's a professor in the discipline of information systems and technology. And he has experience that covers leadership, management positions in higher education, and he's worked for SOEs as a consultant, and of course he has conducted a lot of research in this particular sector. And he holds a BSc from the University of Durban-Westville, MSc from Wits University, and a PhD from the University of Natal. And of course has a great passion for this particular sector. So I think without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Professor Manoj Maharaj to take us through some of the challenges that the sector brings to the equation. His topic is understanding the importance of cybersecurity for ombudsman institutions and the strengthening of cybersecurity in the ombudsman community. Over to you, Prof. Maharaj.
Thank you very much, Advocate, and greetings to colleagues and Advocate Gcaleka. Thank you for having me. Yes, when I was introduced, when I was speaking to Freddie earlier on, and to said, I'm an expert, and I said an expert is one who knows more than most, but less than some. And I think that goes for all of us. So, yes, cybersecurity is a passion, and it's something that I want to share with you today. The topic is about cybersecurity in the Ombuds office and strengthening it, etc. But this talk could be about any institution, and the Ombuds office is nothing special about it. But clearly, as Advocate Kevin just mentioned right now, there is a sense of he used the word embarrassment. If the watchers are themselves targets of cybercrime, and unfortunately, this is what we find in South Africa and generally elsewhere in other countries as well. But largely, South Africa has been targeted with cybercrime drastically. I mean, if you look at metrics that are available in the industry, you find that South Africa is one of the leading sources of cybercrime in the world. Not only targets, not the target, but sources of cybercrime. And it leads you to think, what is going on. And my underlying theme throughout all of this is, yes, cybercrime is complicated, cybercrime is serious, but cybercrime is fundamentally a human issue. More than 99% of all cybercrime attacks, the vectors, in other words, the sources of these crimes are people. Now, whether be they through phishing attacks or be they through malicious acts by people, by insiders in the organization, but this is what it is. Unfortunately, in our country, we see this repeatedly. I spent many years on the board of state-owned enterprises, and have experience in dealing with insider problems that are often blamed on cybercrime. but are really just dishonest people who are trying to, cheat the system rather, and blame it on cybercrime. And I think what happens is when all of us become more cognizant of what cybercrime really is, perhaps then we can be more watchful and to say, listen, this is not really a cybercrime issue. This is a criminality issue by individuals within the organization. And it's something we should look at. But let us go through this and let's, take questions and talk about things as we move along. So the slide talks about three things: cybersecurity, information security, and CIA, which I think most of us know about, but I'll talk about just now. But there was a question that was presented to us before the talk today. One of the questions was, does cybersecurity and digital security differ? And perhaps then, I should have adjusted the slide. But essentially, if you think of it as a pyramid, at the top of the pyramid, we have what is called information security that deals with securing information in all its forms. That means digital, electronic, and physical information. So that's information security. Below that, we have digital security. And below that, you have cybersecurity. So what is the difference? Well, I've explained information security to all of us, to the audience. So digital security is, so for example, you have a digital camera that's not connected to the internet, but you have a digital camera, you take some photos. And that SD card in your camera is protected. It's you have a password protection on it, but somebody steals your camera. And then they take out that SD card, stick it into their computer, reverse engineer the password, and then steal your photographs. That is digital crime. That is digital security. It is not cybersecurity in its broadest sense, because it's not the compromise of your data using internet connected devices, which is what is the domain of cybersecurity. And I think the advocate, the public protector, spoke about this quite eloquently. In fact, in terms of what is cybersecurity and all the connected devices and the connectivity that causes, that gives rise to the definition of cybersecurity. CIA, on the other hand, is something that we talk about always. Whenever you want to talk about cybersecurity, there are three fundamental things about information that you want to protect. C is the confidentiality of the information. I is the integrity of the information. And A is the availability of the information. In any metric that you use, any consultant comes to your office and speaks to you, they will always talk about CIA, about protecting the CIA of information. Your information, the confidential information is paramount. Various laws, I'm not a legal person, but in South Africa, we have POPIA, and in your countries, you have equivalent laws. In the UK, in the Europe, you have data protection laws. In the US, we have various laws as well that are designed to protect the personal information of individuals. Public Protector Office, the ombuds offices throughout countries, and all public offices deal with public information. And the protection of this public information is really, really critical, all right? And the personal information is really critical. And the confidentiality speaks to that. What systems do you have in place to protect the confidentiality of the data that you have? Now, you could have all kinds of electronic systems. You can have, and you'll have cybersecurity consultants coming to your office and saying, you need firewalls, you need this server, you need this software, you need this and this. Their job is to sell you stuff. Their job is to separate you from your money and sell you a lot of technology. But what they won't tell you is that technology is only protecting you maybe 2% of the time. That 98% is the human, is the human part of that. And of that, the majority of the time, it is due to unknown actions by the, unintended actions by the people within these offices. People who don't understand. So I have personal experience in this, when people who don't understand what it is to certify a document. Common sense tells you that if a document is certified by a competent authority, that stamp of certification must be congruent with the thing being certified. If it's a photograph, the stamp has to be over that photograph. Because if it's not, it's very easy for someone like me to reverse engineer that document to present that stamp with a different photograph. Okay, and then you'll have something called something certified. So understanding what it is that underlies the processes is critical. And that is about education and awareness training. So to say to somebody that to certify a document, it must be stamped by a competent authority, and leave it at that is not enough. But to say that that stamp has to be congruent with the item being certified, like a photograph or like a signature, or whatever the case may be, that is common sense, and I think we all know that. But it often, when procedures become form over function, and I say this often, when you're counting things rather than understanding what it is you're counting, it leads to breaches in cybersecurity. It leads to breaches in security. It leads to breaches in confidentiality. Often these are intentional. Most of the time, they're not intentional. Okay, but criminals know this, all right, and criminals take advantage of it. Integrity, on the other hand, is understanding the veracity of the information that you have. It is about, in the broad sense, about the accuracy of the information, but it's more than that. I mean, information need not be accurate, but to have its integrity not questioned. In other words, do we know where the information came from? Has the information been altered? If it has been altered, is the alteration authorized? In other words, by people who are authorized to make those changes. So, for example, you can have valid changes to a document, but by persons not authorized to make those changes. That destroys the integrity of that document. Okay, you can have invalid changes made by authorized persons. If I'm authorized to own a document, I'm an authorized owner of a document, but I make changes to that document that are not according to the rules or allowed procedures, that destroys the integrity of the document. And of course, at the bottom level of that hierarchy is the unauthorized changes, invalid changes by unauthorized parties. So that's about integrity. The last part of this triad, the CIA triad, is availability or access. Information must be available to those who require it in a form that they expect it to be available in. So, and this is it's a subtle point, but it's an important point to understand when you talk about information security and all the subtext to that digital and cybersecurity. If I come to your office and I have a right of access to a spreadsheet, for example, whatever that spreadsheet may be, and you give me that spreadsheet in a comma-separated CSV file or some other format that I'm not expecting, or you give it to me in a language that I don't speak, you are violating the availability or access requirements of the CIA triad. So I must have access to the documents in a form that I expect and in a form that I can read. Okay, so this again places a onus of responsibility on the owners of that document, of that information, to be able to make sure that they present it in a form that is available. And of course, we don't often think about this when we talk about cybersecurity. We often think about cybersecurity in its most technicist and complicated sense, right? But drilling down to it, drilling down to this triad, this is precisely what it is we are talking about when you talk about cybersecurity. Of course, there are other issues around that, non-repudiation, for example, one of them. But that's for another session possibly. So our digital landscape, I mean, as the public protector pointed out, I mean, we are increasingly reliant on technology. She spoke about 4IR and about AI. I'm giving a talk this evening, a keynote lecture this evening at a meeting, and I'm talking about the role of management, for example, in an AI-driven age, and what role it plays. You can ask the same question for the Ombuds office. What is AI going to do? What is the role of large language models? Cybersecurity is driven now. You can go onto the dark web, not even the dark web, you can go onto the website right now, and you can buy AI tools that design malware for you. Malware meaning, cybersecurity, computer programs that are designed to cause harm to your system, right? So I can go online and I can purchase, and not for very expensive either. I can purchase software that will design, I can purchase malware, okay, as a normal process, as a normal marketplace. You could go up there. You can even buy malware on the web with service level agreements, as you would go and buy Microsoft Office, the service level agreement, to say, we guarantee you it'll work and you only pay us if it works. How can you protect yourself against this? So you, as a cybersecurity professional in an ombuds office, for example, or as the ombudsman or the person in charge of the office, you have to protect yourself against all possible threats out there. Yet, people are attacking you, right? They just target you, and you can have multiple targets into your office, and you think this is an uneven and unbalanced process. And how do we deal with this? But I'm here to tell you that you can. And the first line of defense is, again, the human element. And us users who understand what it is about cybersecurity, understand that our behavior directly impacts our actions, our cybersecurity starts within our organization. Do we click on those links? And as Advocate Kevin spoke about, he said about phishing attacks. Why are phishing attacks so prevalent? I speak in Africa. I was speaking in Ghana recently, and about digital transformation. I speak in Botswana often and other African countries. And one of the overriding themes that arises in these phishing scams is a religious theme. So you get these chain emails saying, click on this link and send it to 10 people, and this prayer or this, whatever, this prayer will come true, or if you don't do it, something bad will happen. We've seen these scams, and I was sharing a platform once with a member of the church, a senior member of one of the churches, and I said, I asked him directly. I said, tell me, does God need the internet to talk to us? And he said, of course, no. The answer is no. But surely, but why do people believe this? And people think that that this is a harmless thing to click on a link and to forward a prayer. What harm can it do if you're forwarding a prayer? It can only do good. It can't do harm. Yet the person who designed that malware is not thinking that way. The person that designed that malware has built into this piece of text or poem or whatever it is that you're forwarding, or photograph that you're forwarding, what we call spyware that sits on the computer, that when you click on it, you download to your desktop, all right? And this then sits on your desktop. It's called spyware because it spies on every action that you take on your desktop. It spies on every key. We call them keystroke loggers. It spies on every key that you press, all right? And it collects this data and sends it back to the person, to the owner of that malware, who then knows your username and password for your banking account. Remember, all of crime, all of cybercrime, most crime is financially driven. Okay, so the payload here is your bank account or somebody else's bank account, etc., or or whatever the case may be, and that's how information is stolen. So we need to think twice about clicking on that link and downloading that piece of software or forwarding that email. Forwarding emails you might think to be harmless. You got 10 friends, you forward to 10 friends, but all you've done is given that hacker 10 email addresses that he or she can use for future attacks. You've compromised your friends. Okay, I believe that your friends have a legal right to sue you when you do things like this, but I don't think our legal environment is as, I don't know, but advanced. I don't know if I could do that at the moment within our legal environment. But surely, if I receive an email from you, which I didn't solicit, that contains malware, which can't be my fault. It must be your fault who sends it to you. Okay, and that might be an issue that an ombuds office has to deal with pretty soon. Okay? So these are the cyber risks that I'm talking about in the second bullet point, right? I mean, our reliance on technology, everything is driven by technology, yes, which is not a bad thing. It allows us to be more efficient, etc., right? But we have, so I already spoke about the phishing risk, but there are many other risks out there, okay? But we have problems with digital migration. We have the reluctance to embrace technology, and this causes a problem, right? People feel threatened. Fear becoming redundant. And I find that this is far more prevalent now with the advent of AI, because we don't understand what it really is. And we sort of believe the hype about AI, and we confuse AI with robotics, and our visions of AI are driven by the popular culture, the Terminator and Skynet and iRobot and movies of that kind, which drive our misunderstanding of the technology, and then we fear it. And by fearing it, we withdraw from it. But you withdrawing from something doesn't mean it's not going to advance in and of its own accord. But by you withdrawing from it and not embracing it and understanding it, you give hackers and criminals the chance to exploit your lack of knowledge or your reluctance to embrace the technology. So it's a psychological thing. Okay, it's not a technical thing. To understand something, we need to embrace it. And when we embrace it, we understand it, and we can mitigate threats that arise out of it, which is what this talk is all about. Okay, so that reluctance is a big problem, and it's offices, the Ombuds office, Public Protector's office, government offices. We need a massive education campaign. We need a massive campaign of awareness and training to make people aware of this technology and understand that technology is not going to replace you. As I'll say tonight, and everybody is saying it, you know, AI will not replace you, but someone using AI will. So advocate, your job is safe, whatever the job, what a job you have is. But if somebody comes along just as skilled as you, but has using AI to support his or her activities, then that person becomes 10 times more efficient and effective than you. Okay, then you become redundant. All right. So this is not, and you know, so we need to understand this, and we need to embrace this, because if we don't, then the cybersecurity challenges become far greater in our environments. So phishing, we spoke about ransomware. You know, right now I've got a doctoral student working on ransomware threats within the South African municipalities. These are massive threats. I was just consulting recently, not consulting, I was asked for advice rather, at a local municipality in KZN about a ransomware attack that they've had. But when I delved into that attack and looked carefully at it, I found that the likelihood was that the attack was orchestrated to obscure financial malfeasance within the municipality itself. So somebody who's stealing money, they're about to get caught, so they orchestrated a ransomware attack just by selling the data, essentially. Okay, so everybody concentrates on the cyber attack, the ransomware attack, but they forget that what it was there for was to hide simple theft of funds. So, but ransomware attacks are there, and ransomware attacks, you know, a proper ransomware attack. Johannesburg is in the news recently, and you know, of the ransomware attacks they've been suffering. Why is it the case? Why is it that a municipality that spends millions and hundreds of millions of rands of cybersecurity, okay, and have the receipts to prove it, is still target of ransomware attacks? Something must be wrong somewhere. And my contention is that what is wrong is that you can put all your money into technology in your offices, but if you don't put a fraction of that into awareness training and participatory involvement by your staff in cybersecurity awareness and mitigation, you're not going to solve this problem. Insider threats, the tendency to blame technology for incompetence or carelessness. And I'm being harsh about saying this. I'm not saying you are incompetent or careless, but I'm saying generally, we often tend to blame it. Oh, listen, the email failed, therefore I couldn't see it. All right. Or I couldn't do this because technology failed, or whatever. It's easy to blame technology. It's easy to blame technology because the bulk of the people that you're talking with are less aware of technology than, for example, people like myself. Okay, I never accept this excuse from my students, so the technology didn't work, because I know that 99.9% of the time technology works. Okay, it's if that 1.01% of the time the technology doesn't work, it becomes immediately obvious and apparent that it's the technology's fault. But it's easy to blame technology, and this causes a problem within your organization. I was subject to fraud personally recently. Estate fraud. My late mom passed away, and the estate was stolen through the master's office in KZN. Okay, and there's no question about that. And you know, the court has found in our favor that the master's office was negligent. I think it's more than negligence, but that's a different point. But the point is, when you take this up the line, you take this criminality up the line, you'll find in the banks, you'll find that carelessness and all the lack of application of procedure and you know, or form over function leads to the aggravation of the criminality into becoming fraud, where the money in fact is stolen. Right. So these things happen, and these things happen because people are involved. If it was left to technology to do this, I guarantee you fraud that affected me would not happen. But yet the excuse for not using technology in the office was that, oh, we're not, we don't understand the technology, therefore we not use it. Computers don't lie. Computers don't steal. It's the people that use computers that do. Well-designed systems that embrace within them transparency, what we call digital transparency, right, are much more likely not to be hacked and not to be subject to fraud than any other systems. The more we keep things secret, the more likely it is that there will be fraud. Fraud in our country is endemic. We know this, and there's nothing new that we are all saying. And the question is, why is that the case? Because I believe that lots of things are too secret. And the more you keep things secret, the more likely it is that there's going to be criminals taking advantage of that secrecy to their own intent. Transparency mitigates fraud. And these are those insider threats I talk about, right? On the excuse of being secret. 3 quotes, but one quote, one tenderer doesn't know what the other tenderer is doing, right? Leads to fraud. And this is often supported by insiders. And this is the case study. I'm not going to give you details, obviously, because they're private, but essentially a chain of events from the master's office through to the banks, through to the insurance company, and now sitting with the ombuds office, coincidentally, at the banking ombuds office, is the case of a litany of events at these institutions, culminating, in my view, at the bank, where the bank did not apply its mind to verifying documents that were submitted. The fact of the matter is the documents submitted had to be fraudulent because the claimant was fraudulent, as has been proven. But yet the bank goes ahead and opens a bank account and releases the funds. This is sitting on the ombuds, who says, no, they can't deal with this because, for whatever reason. But the point here is this, that there is fraud that is perpetrated by individuals. The systems at the bank are immaculate. The systems, the policies that underlie the processes that need to be used are really high class. But as individuals involved in it who perpetrate this fraud through whatever reason, through negligence or through active involvement, that caused this to happen. This is what you face at ombuds offices. You can put all the money into technology. You can put all the money into your, into making sure that you have the highest level of technology, and pay the best consultants to come and talk about it. But if your staff are not up to speed, or if your staff are dishonest, you really can't stop it. A dishonest person will eventually trump any system that you have. And fundamentally, the issue is one of ethics. And that's something that we need to deal with at a fundamental level in our country, but in all over the place. So what is the impact of cyber threats? Well, data compromise, obviously. I spoke about that earlier. Service disruption. Services are disrupted. We see this in Johannesburg, for example, with ransomware attacks. We see it in Durban, where I am, in Tekwini, with cyber attacks causing a lack of service and service disruptions to the public, to ratepayers. Lots of public trust in institutions. When institutions don't perform as they should, public loses trust in them. And often that loss in trust is exploited by criminals who say, listen, because it's not going to work, or because you can't trust this government office, give me a few rands or a few dollars or whatever the thing is, and I'll make sure it happens. All that does is just exacerbate criminality and fraud and corruption. Okay, and once we buy into it, we are party to that circle of corruption that we all complain against. And these are the interfaces where cyber criminals thrive. Okay, cyber criminals thrive at an interface. Think about the anatomy of a phishing attack. When a phishing attack, when you get an email saying, listen, my father stole R1 million from country X, or 10 million rands from country X, and I need to get this money out of the country. And can you provide me with some kind of safe haven to store the money in your account, no risk to you, and I'll give you 10%. see what's happening there. You're immediately being asked to become party to a criminal enterprise. And once that phishing attack baits you in with that criminal intent and you buy into it, you become party to this criminal act. And so you're likely not to talk about it. You're not going to go to the police and say, listen, I agreed to steal money for this guy, but he in turn stole money from me, so I want my money back. You're likely not to do that. And so this is how these criminal enterprises work. All right. When there's loss of public trust, then these criminals know that they can attack your institution because your institution has no trust in the public. All right. So what happens? They come in with these kind of phishing scams. They targeted phishing scams often. All right. We call them spear phishing scams because they targeted to individuals within organizations who are known to be compromised or suspected to be compromised. This is what, in the end, to mitigate these threats, public institutions need to have as part of their protocol, standard protocol, means and ways and means tests for their staff. You have to be able to show how you can afford that Porsche on the salary that we pay you. This is a simple thing, but we don't have that, right? Simple ways and means tests, because that way you can, the policing of the system will prevent, if you will, further erosion of these systems, right? So cyber threats and cyber criminals work at that interface when there's a loss of trust, right? And these things are actually, they're actually second-order effects when you think about it. They feed into each other, all right? When you have a loss of trust, you have greater cyber attacks, which means greater loss of trust, greater cyber attacks, and the system goes downhill, right? In my case, when the fraud was first reported in 2021, I had the Department of Justice send investigators down to visit me in my home to investigate. I forget the names, it doesn't matter. And I had a long meeting with them, gave them all the facts at hand and told them about the master's office in Durban, gave them names and everything. Nothing's come of it. I laid the charge with the police, providing names of the people who stole my money from the accounts with addresses, because we got them from the banks. The police closed the case, and because I don't know, because they can't go further. What is that? Or what causes that? Now, criminals thrive in this environment when you have a lack of policing, and I'll speak about that just now. Right? The cyber security protection of the public from cyber threats requires all institutions to be party to that circle of trust, if you will. Right? Includes the public, the Department of Justice, the Ombudsman offices, the institutions themselves, be they public or private, everybody involved in a concerted effort to eradicate this crime. When you have a single weakness, if the police refuse to investigate because they can't or will not, the Department of Justice refuses to pursue the matter because they can't or will not, these things exacerbate these crimes. And all of these crimes are cyber crimes. In my case, it's cyber crimes because there were technology used to commit these crimes. Okay, although there were individuals involved in these crimes. So there's the ethical issue, there are legal issues, and the practical issues about responsibility. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this, having this environment that the public can trust. Okay, the public can go to the police and say, lay a charge and trust that that charge will be followed up. Now, I'm a professor at the university, and I'm an expert in cybersecurity, and I have lots of experience in various things. Can you imagine Joe Public, who goes to the police with a case and really can't enunciate the case properly, can't structure it properly, but just knows that they've been attacked and they've been subject to crime, some kind of cyber crime? What help do they have in this environment? Okay, and this is where the Ombudsman office plays a critical role. Right? But as I think was acknowledged by a public protector as well, saying we won't know how to deal with it because we really don't know. This for me is a problem, and this for me talks back to the fundamental issues of awareness and education of everybody in the public and our staff. Government needs to start a broad education and awareness campaign to the public in general. We see this in other countries. We see this in first world countries all the time, but we don't see it in our countries. Well, certainly our country in South Africa, a public awareness campaign. Okay, so these are the practical issues for responsibility, right? Just knowing what to click on, what not to click on. I've spoken about the legal environment. Ethics, I don't know if you can teach ethics, but certainly we can talk about it. Right. POPIA, we've spoken about that. Regulations and laws, policies. Audits, I've spoken about, means audits, etc. But policies, I challenge any one of you, and Advocate Kevin, you have to tell me when to stop, okay? Because time, sure. I sort of run away sometime. But when you talk about policies, I challenge every one of you to go and find your policies in your organization, whatever organization you work in, your cybersecurity policies, and then try and read and understand those policies. I challenge you, and I'll guarantee 90% of you, if you do happen to find those policies, will not even understand what those policies mean. Right? Because policies are written for form over function, again, for audit purposes. In other words, the auditor comes through and once a year and says, do you have a policy on this? Let's tick the box. Do you have a policy on this? Let's tick the box. Nobody checks whether those policies are effective, whether they work, whether they are relevant, all right, or whether those policies can be understood. I have a student who's actually researching at the moment on the wording in policies. Do people understand this kind of legalese that is used to write policies? But policies are not meant to be legal documents. At the high level, perhaps they are. They have to be legally sound. But they're supposed to be accessible to staff, to non-legal staff within the organization, to be able to understand. Policies should be easier to go through than to go around. But our policies are so complicated that rather than go through, you go around. And once you go around one policy, you can go around 10 policies. And this is where you have compliance breaches in the organization. Our policies are atrocious in the large, okay? And policies are outdated in the large because the reason for these policies is the once a year or once every 2-year audit that happens, that you have to tick the box that the policies are there. We don't, and leadership needs to ensure that the policies and procedures that are in the organization, especially for cybersecurity, but for everything, are usable, understandable, and effective. And I challenge you to do this after this talk. Go and check your policies and come back maybe to Frankie or somebody and say, I was wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. Okay. But I guess I'm right most of the time. Risk analysis. Understanding what risk is. And often we, I'm not going to talk about risk now because it's another issue. But often we misunderstand the concept of risk. We confuse the probability of something happening with the risk of that thing. Okay, with the cost of that thing. And I use the example, if you don't wear a seatbelt in your car for a short drive to the shop 100 meters away, the probability of you meeting an accident, I agree, is very, very low. But the cost, if you do meet an accident, is probably very high because you're not wearing a seatbelt. You break an arm, you break a leg, you die. Okay, so the risk of that event is still extremely high for me. But yet many people say, I'll just go to the shop to the corner, I won't wear a seatbelt, nothing's happening. Nothing will happen. Therein lies the rub. Therein lies the confusion of understanding risk properly by people who are charged with defining risk in your organization. And this is a big thing. It's a simple bullet point over here. It's a big thing. Understand what risk means. Understand what the impact of a particular instance or incident is on your organization. Cost that and act accordingly. Training and awareness, I've spoken about that in a robust measure. Once you got your training and awareness in, then you can spend money on high-tech equipment. It's no use buying a Porsche if all you can drive is a bicycle. Okay. If all you can ride is a bicycle, then buy a bicycle. But if you're trained to drive a Porsche, then buy the Porsche. And this is what I'm talking about. Regular training and awareness. Once you and your colleagues are trained and aware and understand fully what the risks are, what the policies you have on the organization, or what the regulations are, etc. All of these things. Then yes, go and buy the Porsche, go and buy the R1 million or $1 million firewall or whatever service you need, etc. Because the consultant says you need it. Okay, but don't do it unless you know what you're doing and how you're using it. And you cannot outsource. You can outsource the management of your cybersecurity. You can't outsource the ethics of that cybersecurity. You can't outsource the fundamentals that are still under your control. And while you outsource the controls, you might outsource the management of your cybersecurity measures. You don't outsource the responsibility of it. That's still yours, legally and ethically. Okay, still your responsibility. So you can't say that, we put a firewall in, we've got the best antivirus, we've done this, and company X was supposed to handle it, they didn't, it's not our fault. It is your fault for not ensuring that company X did their jobs. Okay, and therein, again, is another issue but that all comes from training and awareness and risk and policies, etc. All of the points are made above here that come into these robust measures that you need to install. Okay, I think they both the introductions spoke about AI and emerging technologies. Of course, these are critical issues, and the point to be made over here is this, and I think I ought to make this very important point. In the earlier days of technology assimilation, World Wide Web in the 90s, Google search, cell phones in the 90s, which sort of in South Africa, I'm talking about, at the same time as the World Wide Web. These technologies grew on us over 10, 20 years, right? We've now become accustomed to these technologies and we use them, right? Adequately, I should say, not expertly in all cases, okay? But these technologies gave us time to adapt and to learn. AI is not giving us the time. AI is not giving us that time. Right? I got a student right at the moment trying to do some research, a master's student on ethics of AI in business. And he came up with some references in his proposal from 2019 and 2020. And I said, but that's before ChatGPT, it's too old. Here's a reference for a proposal for a master's degree that is from less than 3 years ago, 2020, and 3 years ago, 2019. It's too old. It just shows the rate at which technology is advancing, right? Can you imagine what's it going to do to our society and what's it doing already, which most of us don't even just don't know, all right? Because we take this approach, I don't understand it, I fear it, and maybe if I just stick my head in the sand, it'll go away, all right? But it's not going to go away, all right? And quantum computing, something we wouldn't even talk about in this environment, all right? Something that perhaps most of people sitting in this forum would maybe briefly and vaguely have heard about. But quantum computing is going in leaps and bounds right now. Technology is advancing to such an extent that the power of quantum computers in 5 years' time will be a single quantum computer in 5 years' time will be equivalent to all the computing power we have in the world today. Think about that. Think about what that can do to the world, how it can improve the world, right? And how it can change the world in good or bad ways. How it does that depends on how we embrace it, how leadership within society, how offices such as ours, when I say ours, I mean in this forum, the ombuds offices and public offices, embrace these things, embrace these concepts, and drive public awareness of it through whatever forums we have. And a forum like this is one of them, obviously. Okay. Increased criminality, of course there's increased criminality. Poor policing, I spoke about that already. If the police are not partners in this quest to eradicate cybercrime, then you're not going to eradicate it, right? And I think the South African Police Service is one cybercrime unit. I think it's 1 or 2 guys somewhere in Pretoria for a country as big as ours, right? We have problems, right? And of course, coordination between various parties. We work in our silos, we live in our silos, and these will cause untold problems and continue to cause these problems. And it's at that intersection or the non-intersection, if you will, of these silos that where cyber criminals thrive. And that's something we need to be careful about. Right? Okay, I think I'll stop there. I think I may have gone past my time, Advocate Kevin. But yeah, if there are any questions, I will take questions later. But yeah, thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, no, thank you very much. I certainly didn't want to the presentation was so fascinating and so in depth that I didn't want to jinx it. The time, obviously, you went way past the time. You're going to have to contribute. We're going to fine you, in terms of your next consulting fee. But otherwise, the presentation was too good to derail by cutting it off. So
I do apologize. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I suddenly, I thought when I saw the time allocation 20 minutes, I just thought this is not going to be adequate. So I don't think Professor Gamtuza should also constrain himself if he has burning issues to talk about. We were really, Prof. Maharaj, we're eternally grateful to you for that insightful sort of presentation. And as the acting public protector, Advocate Gcaleka, mentioned, and as I mentioned at some point, that it looks like this is a problem for all of us. It's not a problem just for cyber, for ombudsman institutions. It's a human problem at the end of the day, and we are very grateful to you for that very fascinating survey. Let me introduce the next speaker, who is Professor Sizwe Snell Gamtuze. Professor Sizwe Snell Gamtuze is a highly respected expert in cyber law. He holds an LLB from the University of Pretoria, specializing in tax law and cyber law, and an LLM from UNISA, and is currently pursuing an LLD, Doctor of Laws, at the University of Fort Hare. He's an adjunct professor at Nelson Mandela University. And as you can see on the screen, he's also a visiting professor in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And he lectures cyber law and IT at the University of Fort Hare, and is an accomplished author and editor involved in publishing a book. I think I have seen that book. I don't have a copy of it, but I'll definitely get one soon after this. Cyber Law at SA3, then that's the 3rd and 4th edition. And he's an external examiner for cyber law at various local universities and international coordinator for the African Center for Cyber Law and Crime Prevention beyond academia. So he's a much sought after consultant and commentator, which is why we have him here today, contributing to journals, newspapers, webinars. And of course, his clients include the private companies, government institutions across Africa and Europe. Prof. Snell Gamtuze has held significant positions, including chairing the e-commerce committee in the ICT review panel and serving on the National Cybersecurity Advisory Council. He contributed to the South African Information Regulator and Film and Publications Appeal Board. He has also played an active role in the Law Society of South Africa and served as a mediator for domain name disputes. And currently, Prof. Snell Gamtuze is a member of the Cyber BRICS Advisory Board. So as you know, the BRICS, there's that big BRICS conference coming up, which has been in the news for all sorts of interesting reasons. I'm sure you know that. And an examiner for the Legal Practice Council. Wonderful. His expertise and contributions contribute to shape the field of cyber law. He's also a visiting professor, as I said, at Fundacao Getulio Vargas, which is an institution in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, since 2022. So yeah, over to you, Prof. We look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate, and thank you for the organizers of this webinar for inviting me. Let me not waste any time. Let me get straight into the topic. So I was requested to talk about African strategies for building resilience regarding cybersecurity measures and strengthening cybersecurity. And whilst I was busy putting the slides together, I figured that maybe one ought to talk about Africa first, and then maybe a little bit about South Africa. I've tried to limit the presentation to 20 minutes, but I believe our chairperson has been kind enough to allow me to overstep, saying, should it be necessary? Okay, so my presentation, as I said, is going to be a legal presentation. Just heard the technical aspect relating to cybersecurity. What do we as legal people or as jurists define as cybersecurity? Obviously, there's a lot of definitions out there that one can take from, but I felt that, you know, it would be appropriate that one looked at one of the famous Nigerian authors, Professor Orji, and one of our local authors as well, Adams, when looking at this definition. And Prof. Orji says, look, cybersecurity is a multidisciplinary aspect of information technology. And it has legal aspects, regulatory aspects, as well as technical and non-technical mechanisms which are put in place to protect computer systems, to protect network, to protect critical infrastructure, basically anything that uses a digital technology or a digital network to convey information. Then we also look at Adams. Adams has a slightly different definition and talks about cybersecurity being an institutional online infrastructure which is established to protect information as well as avoiding being hacked. And I'm using the word avoid because we always say you cannot be protected from hackers 100%. You will not be bothered about hackers until the day you are hacked. So the wanting to avoid from being hacked. And once again, the competing areas relating to privacy, as well as cybersecurity and cybercriminality that emanate from that. There is a convergence between what we call privacy, online privacy, data security, as well as cybercriminality. But I always say they are not brothers and sisters, they are cousins. They all have a common ancestor, and the common ancestor is called vulnerability. So there's a big ancestor called vulnerability, which then covers all these aspects. But I don't want to stray away from the topic of today. And I just want to take us to what we call the Malabo Convention. For those of you who don't know the Malabo Convention, it's a convention that is now 13 years old. It came into force, interestingly enough, 2 months ago, with Mauritania being the last state that was required. I think it was 15 states that were required to sign the convention for it to come into force. And the Malabo Convention on data protection and cybersecurity is somewhat an omnibus convention. And it's an omnibus convention because it deals with aspects relating to e-commerce, cybercriminality, data protection, and then most of all, cybersecurity. Now, why have they bundled up all these in one convention? Well, as I said, it is 13 years old. And as I've mentioned with regards to the previous slide, these do have some form of convergence and commonality. So the Malabo Convention, as it is, has been established to create legal frameworks that are basically aimed at protecting physical data, as well as the emphasis of punishing anyone who unlawfully accesses data. Now, what is also important is that the Malabo Convention, as I said, talked about member states adopting strategies that are appropriate and adequate to implement national cybersecurity policies, as well as the development, the sensitization, as well as capacity building. And the emphasis of triple Ps, public and private partnership, as well as international cooperation. And because this is an African document, the emphasis on African regional cooperation. Now, as I've mentioned, the Malabo Convention also talks about data protection. And data protection is a subset, obviously, of the right to privacy. And within data protection, you also get the aspect of data security. So very important, cybersecurity, data protection, and as I said, unlawful conduct being criminalized in terms of cyber criminal legislation. Now, in addition to the Malabo Convention, last year, we also had what we call the Lomé Declaration. Now, the Lomé Declaration is a policy declaration, which is also being brought by African states to build specific legislative frameworks and regulatory frameworks to increase capacity as well as increase cybersecurity cooperation on the African continent. Now, what is very, very important about the Lomé Declaration was that this was before the Malabo Convention came into force earlier this year. And I think African states were getting a little bit frustrated with the snail's pace, excuse the pun, of which the Malabo Convention was being implemented. Therefore, the Lomé Declaration also was brought to basically address and to give, more meat to cybersecurity policy, as well as the position of African states regarding their position on how to deal with cybersecurity threats and the like. A very important thing, the raising of awareness, as you heard from the previous speaker. Awareness is extremely important, not just awareness on a high level, but at grassroots level in the schools, as well as in our universities. Cybersecurity and cyber law is a now reality. We teach, for instance, using webinars. We no longer have to go to physical classrooms. We also do tests, and we also do other forms of assessment using electronic space. And therefore, cybersecurity is important so that we have a safe and viable environment, where one can basically foster a culture of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, obviously, is not just your and mine obligation. The state also has several obligations to create several agencies in order to further the needs of a state regarding cybersecurity, and also, creating several units, be it cybersecurity in the form of a diplomacy, be it cybersecurity in the form of military defenses, be it cybersecurity in the form of legal provisions. So the Lomé Declaration, an add-on to the important Malabo Convention. Now, as you've been seeing, cybersecurity is an ongoing agenda, right? So we also have the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa, which is the most recent attempt to also deal with digital transformation in Africa. Once again, the issue of cybersecurity governance and effective cybersecurity policies standing out as well, and ensuring that African states develop cybersecurity measures, and that at least by 2063, African states must be up to date and in line with international standards and norms dealing with cyber security. Now, obviously, a digital transformation in Africa has also catapulted this, with the post-event of COVID-19, also forcing African states, in fact, people all around the world, to become more conscious about cybersecurity as well as their cybersecurity practices. What is also important with cybersecurity is the effects or the ability to detect and mitigate cybersecurity threats. In addition to that, also, the strategy calls for the Malabo Convention to enter into force. and we've now heard now that it actually has entered into force 2 months ago. So at least that is something that is successfully being done there. There's also important there, I think, is the human aspect. So it's not just about us jurists and us creating laws, it's also about human institutional capacity. In other words, having qualified persons to assist us in the development of cybersecurity policies, cybersecurity frameworks, as well as the creation of relevant standards and norms to govern cybersecurity on an African level. Now, initially, I was not going to talk about the POPIA, but when I heard the previous speaker touch on the POPIA, I said, well, I might as well, you know. So the Protection of Personal Information Act is our South African data protection legislation. It is quite akin to the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation of the EU, and it has 8 principles relating to data protection and how data must be used, or better put, processed, as it is said in the Act. And we have 8 principles: accountability, process limitation, purpose-specific processing, further processing, information quality of data, openness, and for the purpose of this discussion, security safeguards, as well as data subject participation. Now, what is important here is as I said, security safeguard principles, right? A responsible party, in other words, a party that processes data of a data subject. You and I are data subjects. A responsible party is the party that processes data. In the GDPR, we use the word data processor as well, right? Or data controller. Here we have responsible parties or operators where a third party does so. But what is important to mention here is that there is a positive duty upon anyone who stores data, processes data, to secure the integrity as well as the confidentiality of data. And in doing so, on the one hand, as Prof. Maharaj put, we must have sufficient technical measures, and there's also the word organizational measures. What exactly are organizational measures? When I simplify it, I think organizational measures is the human factor, you and me. How do you and I perceive data? How do you and I perceive security? And how do you and I ensure that we have a high level of confidentiality so as to ensure that no data is lost or damaged, or there is a form of unlawful access? Doing so, here we must have a look at both the internal as well as external, establish appropriate safeguards, and make sure that these safeguards are regularly updated, continuously updated, so as to also be aware of any deficiencies that may be with current safeguards. Just lastly on the POPIA also, in the event of a data breach, I'm sure a lot of people in Africa have been hearing the word data breach, since data protection is a very hot topic in the last 3-4 years. But in the event where data has been breached of a responsible party, the positive duty to notify the data subjects, as well as the positive duty to self-report to the information regulator so as to deal with the data breach. You heard earlier on about the data breach at the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice having been fined 5 million by the information regulator because of these particular leaks. Once again, in South Africa, we have the National Cybersecurity Policy Framework that has been there since 2015. There have been several attempts to have the Cyber Crimes and Cybersecurity Bill in 2015. In 2018, it was felt that, look, as much as cybersecurity and cybercrime as I mentioned, are cousins, they are not brother and sister. Therefore, the Cyber Crimes Bill was separated, and unfortunately, the Cybersecurity Bill somehow fell on the back burner. But what is important to say about the Cybersecurity Bill, and we've recently seen attempts by one of the political parties to bring in a private bill regarding what they call the Cybersecurity Commissioner, is, the creation of several structures dealing with cybersecurity, as well as computer certs, in other words, incidents teams to deal with cybersecurity breaches. So that is also an ongoing legislative process in South Africa. We then also have the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act that deals with critical infrastructure and the protection of critical infrastructure, as well as the identification thereof, as well as, the creation of certain standards and certain norms regarding cybersecurity. We've also recently seen the interim regulations come into force. So cybersecurity, once again, becoming the priority of our government in South Africa. And as we say, critical infrastructure, not just of government, but also of the private sector or of even universities. Universities, as we know, very, very important backbone when it comes to our internet infrastructure. If one looks at the history of the internet, it first started with universities in America and across the world. And even today, universities are still the places where cybersecurity and the internet capacity is being developed on a, should I say, day-to-day basis. So that is basically the short and sweet regarding cybersecurity capacity building on the African side, as well as a short glimpse on what is happening in South Africa. I would have loved to have discussed this for an hour or two, but due to constraints and time, I would rather prefer to respect the program and give back over to our chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. You will have heard from Prof, and I think we could just listen all day. Both speakers have been fantastic, and I think it's critical that we are obviously seeing that this is a problem for all of us. It is something that one just can't run away from. It permeates every facet of our lives. I suppose because the cyberspace is every aspect of our being these days. We are operating in a cyberspace right now as we speak, as we have this webinar. We are communicating. I was just marveling at how vast the audience is coming from. Albania, Israel, Tanzania, Malawi, Australia. Everybody is here. So and this just is a testament to the power of yeah. So that was very entertaining presentation and presentations, both of them. So let me just quickly go through our order of proceedings. So now I think we are going to move on to the questions. Just with you shortly. So yes, so we have been graciously been given until 11:45 South African time, and of course you from whatever time zone that you are in, just calculate 19 more minutes. So we will probably have about 10 to 15 minutes of the question and answer. Let me just go to the question and answer. So Let me see what we have in the chat box. I hope that we, just 1 second, I'm just scrolling down to, some of them are greetings, some of them are questions. There's one interesting one which I saw from Uganda. Where it says, how do we solve the issue of accessibility due to the rural nature of African countries? So I think maybe we can just spread this question out to say, how do we deal with this context from the fact of accessibility, the socioeconomic challenges, the rural nature of, I don't know who's going to take that particular question. And of course, Prof. Sizwe.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
You know, the issue of accessibility is a very, very good question, where when it comes to cyber law and cybersecurity, it actually flows together with the right to access to information. So we always think that the right to access to information is about accessing data from the state only. We've seen beautiful court cases where our courts in South Africa have now enforced this right to access to information when it comes to information held by the state. But it is also important that access to information is a duty upon African states to make available the internet, make it available to ensure that people in the rural communities can participate as much as we are participating in the large metros and cities. It is about inclusivity. It is about reaching the gap between have and have-nots. It's a very important topic, and I'm very passionate about it. But let me also allow Prof. Maharaj to say a word or two.
Okay, I have some stuff from Prof. Maharaj specifically. Thank you, Prof. Sizwe. There are two questions that are for Prof. Maharaj. The first one is, what does it mean when we accept cookies on a website? I certainly know it's not biscuits, but what does it mean when we say, when it says we must accept the cookies? And then the second question, you may also, Prof. Sizwe, you may also answer is how do we check the references of the sites we browse to make sure that they're safe? So those two questions. I suppose they're really about when you click something, how safe are you? And Prof. Maharaj, this is also yours as well.
Thank you. To the first point, which Sizwe answered as well in terms of accessibility. You know, one of the issues we have in terms of reporting measures. So for example, I had a discussion on LinkedIn recently with a board member from the ICASA. They were quoting to say, listen, 95% of South Africans have access to the internet. I said, well, that sounds great. It sounds like, because, you know, you have access via your mobile phones and not via broadband or fiber at home, but it's fine. You know, we have high-speed data connectivity in South Africa. But the point is, it's not about access, it's about ubiquitous, always-on access. You see, the problem I find that when I speak to colleagues throughout Africa is that everybody has access, but data is so expensive that what happens is you'll turn on your phone's data, you'll do whatever you have to do, and you'll put it off. Now, to embrace the technology and embrace the learning capacity that is available on the internet for all of us, you need to have it on all the time. You need to be able to dive down that rabbit hole and be able to investigate things and find answers and watch YouTube videos and go to learning channels, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't do that if you just turn on your, so quoting a stat like saying 95% of Africans, there's another stat that says 95% of Africans have access to the internet. Yes, they all have smartphones, but they can't afford the internet. They only turn it on to do a small transaction and then turn it off again. So you find that access is not. So I asked the council member, I said, well, you need to be reporting ubiquitous access that allows people to spend time on the internet. And so this is a problem. And I think Sizwe has pointed that out as well. We need to get these reporting measures to be realistic, not just, again, for audit purposes. I have this bugbear that you'll hear me talk about all the time. It's about auditing as opposed to what really is important. And another point I want to make, just before going on to the questions you asked, I was going to make this point, I forgot. Policies are legal documents, but they're not for lawyers to read. They're for people like me to read, or people like you, normal people to read. Lawyers can read very complicated text and understand it just like that. And they tend to write that way. And when you get lawyers to write policies, they write it that way. And I'm talking to senior lawyers over here. You know what I'm talking about. But it's meant for Joe Public. So the difficulty is writing a legal document for Joe Public to be able to read. That's where our policies fail. To go on to the cookies, a cookie, yes, it's not a tasty treat. A cookie is just a tiny piece of software that the website host needs to install on your machine, okay, so that their website can function. Now, for example, when you go to a website, sometimes they ask you for your date or date of birth. For example, let's say I want to buy whiskey online. It'll ask me for a date of birth because you're not allowed to sell whiskey in South Africa to somebody, I think it's under the age of 18. So I asked for a date of birth. Now that is stored as a cookie on my computer. So the next time I go to that website, I don't have to type in my date of birth again. Okay, so that's a cookie. Now, there are many cookies. Now, the new law and many of the websites now that you log into, European websites and websites that are hosted in the US and Europe, they'll come up with cookie policies. And even South African websites are doing this now as well. Cookie policies and so it's so easy to say accept all, because we don't want to go into the website and read through all of these documents, all of these things. And accept all means you're accepting marketing cookies, you're accepting your data to be shared with third parties, etc. Don't accept all. Say don't accept all, go to that website and click necessary cookies only. If you want to do other things, yes, do it. I mean, if you want to be tracked, by all means, go and be tracked, but you have a choice, right? Don't just say accept all, because that is the problem. So cookies are a little piece of software that are attached to your machine to allow the website to function. So for example, the next time I go into a certain website, I don't have to type my password in because it's stored as a cookie on my machine linked to that website. But don't ever make that mistake of doing this for your banking website. Many people will say, the banking site will come out, do you want me to remember your password? And he said, oh, yeah, I don't want to type my password. He said, we remember. Don't ever do that, because you're just compromising yourself, right? Always type in your password and username into a banking website. Never, ever accept any site that comes to say, okay, we have your username, just type in your password, or whatever the case may be. Those simple rules like this. Type in your password yourself into a website for your banking, and never, ever, and I'm not going to go into this in detail, never, ever do your banking at the mug and bean, because it's free internet. Because of the cost of internet in South Africa and in Africa in general, people tend to utilize free internet services. Remember, nothing is free. There's always a cost. And the cost is your data when you go to these free sites. So you go to the world mug and bean, you have a cup of coffee and you have free internet, and you say, let me go and do my banking. Absolutely not. Never, ever do that. Never, ever use a public website for anything that requires a password. If you have a type of password, even into your Facebook, even into any site, I can't stress this more. If you have to type in a password, you shouldn't be doing it in a public website. If you need to do banking while you're at the bug and bean, log off from the public website, go into your data and on your phone and do it that way. You're more secure. Okay.
Can I just ask you a follow-up question on the cookies that is down below? It says, how can you clean all the cookies on your computer if you no longer need them or start afresh?
Yes, so you go into your settings in your browser, and you go into security settings, and you can say clear all cookies, clear history. So it depends which browser you use. Most people will be using Edge browser. I don't use Edge. I use Safari on my Mac, and I use Chrome. But all browsers have a tab on the top where you click on it, and it's history or security, depending on how your browser is configured. And in there, you'll say clear cookies. Okay. Just go into the browser and ask. It'll tell you how to do it. Okay.
Thanks.
And clear your cookies. Yeah.
And Prof. Caesar, do you have any comments or questions on that? We just have another one.
Well, I see.
Time. In what form may I? In what form may I protect my institution against cyber threats? What are the best practices to guarantee cybersecurity? And how can institutions prepare for possible incidents? It looks like the person also wrote in French a bit there. So I think it's from a Francophone country. So I suppose they're talking about prevention, which I think both of you have quite lucidly and eloquently pointed out. But maybe you can just give people some takeaways. I don't know who's going to start. Prof. Caesar, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Just on the cookie thing, just to finish off on that, the POPIA talks about openness as well. When I was going through the presentation earlier on, it is one of the requirements of the data protection legislation that if you are going to take my data, you are going to be sending a little piece of software to come and harvest data on my computer, that you must openly notify me to do that. So that's just the legal thing I wanted to latch on there. And then the question on how do I secure my organization? Well, as I said, you will never know about being hacked until you've been hacked. But the technical and organizational measures that I spoke about, I cannot stress the amount of technical and organizational measures that you must have. Technical being your firewalls, being your software, and even your software must be regularly updated. Someone must not forget to pay the licenses, like we had in the Justice data breach. That is the technical side. And then organizational. You and me, you and I, we need to clean up our data practices and our security practices. We should not give our secretary our passwords. We should not be using the remember my password icon, as Prof eloquently said so. So it all starts with you and me to be resilient, to avoid incidents of cybersecurity threats. Thank you.
Sorry, and Advocate Kevin, one of the points to be made is passwords are something that, it's a necessary evil right now. There are new technologies coming out which will not require it, but for now. And everywhere you go requires a different password. So what happens? Because we are lazy, inherently lazy, we reuse our passwords. Once you do that, Advocate, you're compromised immediately. And remember one thing, there's 130, 140 people in the audience today. Statistics show that 70%, that means about 100 people in this audience, have personally identifiable information in their passwords. Name of a husband, wife, child, dog, cat, something like that. It's in your password. Now, social engineers, people who are skilled in things like this, like myself and Caesar here, will be able to sit and talk to you, have a chat with you, share information with you. I'd say, Advocate Kevin, I've got 2 children. My children are this age and that age, and my birthdays are this and that, over a beer in a pub somewhere. And human beings are gregarious. We like to share. When somebody talks to you, you talk back. If I give you my son's age, you're going to tell me your son's age. I'll give you my daughter's having a birthday next week, or what presents do I buy? You will tell me about your daughter's presents. If I tell you about my pets, you'll tell me about your pets. My pets and daughters and children don't even have to exist, because I'm a social engineer, but yours will. I'll collect that information, I'll run it through software that's freely available on the network, and I'll generate passwords from that. Remember, I don't need your specific password. I need a password to break into your system. So this goes to, how do we secure our systems, right? So it needs a password. So I'll get a password. Once I break into the system, I'm in. We talk about onion security like an onion in layers, right? We need multiple layers of security, but most of our security is like eggshells, hard and crusty on the outside, soft and mushy on the inside. So once you break through the eggshell, you're there. There's nothing inside, right? We put all our efforts to that password, yet the password is the most compromised part of our security. If every one of our audience over here went back and did a survey in their organizations and just asked, what kind of information, don't ask what passwords they are. I guarantee you find 70%, if not more, right, that your passwords contain personally identifiable information. And that is a no-no as well. That is what hackers thrive on. You wonder, how did a person hack me? How did the person get our information? They got it because your daughter's name is in your password. That's how they got it, all right? Because it's something easy for you to remember. So there's a compromise, there's a difficulty, yes, remembering passwords are hard, but there are strategies for creating passwords that allow you to remember them easily. I've got hundreds of passwords. I remember all of them, not because I remember them, but I have an algorithm for creating them, which is pretty crazy. It can't be guessed, in other words, right? So if I go to a particular website, I know what the password is for that website. It doesn't matter if I visited the website 5 years ago, because of the way I create that password. So there are ways to do that. Of course, there are password vaults on your machine now. Safari and Microsoft and Google Chrome, proper browsers, you go there, you can create strong passwords. And these strong passwords are stored on your system for you. You don't have to remember them. All you have to do is make sure your system is secure with a strong password that only you know. Right? There are a whole lot of other issues that we can talk about that perhaps takes another session.
Yes.
About social engineering.
Just one last intervention there from what you just said. Are any type of websites particularly prone to phishing and danger? Obviously, people have always warned people against pornographic websites, for example.
Pornographic websites are the most secure websites on the web.
Oh my goodness.
Because they make the most money.
Okay. Okay.
They make the most money.
People's information.
They're very secure. Because remember, those are purely business-driven websites. They rely on security of information. No, they're very secure websites. Research has shown that. Okay. Right? They're very secure websites. So secure websites that are not secure, they're easy. You go to a website, you look on the top of the website, you see the little lock icon, right? Yeah. Or secure icon. Click on that icon. That icon is not a picture. If you click on it, it opens up and tells you about the certificate. And again, this is another lecture in itself. It tells you about the digital certificate for the website. Never make sure that your certificate is valid, because it'll come up and say certificate not valid. If a certificate is not valid on the website, just go away. Remember, for every website that you need to visit, there are 1,000 others doing the same thing. If you go to a website that is not secure, go to another website. All right. So again, look for the security of it. Look for HTTPS rather than HTTP. If you're not sure, click on the lock next to the icon on the top, next to the URL, there's a lock or something similar. Click on it. If that lock is not clickable, it's not a secure website. There was a recent hack in Citibank. So people got an email saying Citibank, click on this link, and it looked exactly like Citibank, but the A in the bank was written like an alpha rather than the normal A. When you read it, when we read text, what do we read? You read the first bit and the last bit. You don't read all the letters in the text. You intuit what it's going to be. Okay, that's how you read fast. And hackers take advantage of that. So the A became an alpha. It looks just like an A, but when you clicked on it, went to a completely different site, a clone site, looks exactly like the original site, and you typed in your information. Goes back to my original point. Never click on a banking link. Banks will never ask you to click on a link to go to the site. Banks will say to you, go to your website, log in and do this. They'll never say, click on this link, go to your website, log in and do this. I've got so many examples of people that have been hacked because they clicked on a link, seemingly, genuine link coming from the bank, etc. So, we can teach you how to read URLs on the website to see whether they're valid or not. Again, this is, perhaps another session. We will only deal with that. But right now, there are technologies, there are techniques, most of them, and all of them require that you take 10 minutes just to go to a website. The UK has some beautiful websites on the Office of Cybersecurity. Just go there and read on their tips. Wow. We don't have one in South Africa. We should, in all 11 of our languages, but we don't do that here.
Oh, thank you very much to the speakers. I think I can concur with Pia Simone Sawaka who says in the chat, thanks for the info. It was like a blind man wandering in the wilderness when it comes to cybersecurity. Isabella from Romania says, Isabella Sena, oh, I think it's, what happened, Isabella? I think it just moved for a while. Isabella, yes, from Romania, who says, thank you for both professors for presentations and for the information and answers. And then, of course, Thokozani Mkhize, he's saying, thank you for the clarity on the internet cookies. Definitely, they are not your cookies in the biscuits, in the definitely now you know. And then we have Msafiri Ngololo from I'm not sure which country, who says, how do you prevent someone from accessing the email through other platforms like Skype and LinkedIn? Prof, in your closing remarks, maybe you can just address that. Both professors can address that. And then, of course, Dr. Ferdinand Epoch says, wonderful presentations from the speakers gave participants the latest information. I concur. And then, of course, Dominic from Uganda says, thanks to the presenters. We are eternally grateful as well. Leonardo Green, brilliant presentations. I totally agree with you. Of course, we were not able to do simultaneous translations available, but as you can see, Professor Maharaj says, he did provide my slides in French, Portuguese, and Arabic. And then, of course, I see the concerns over translation, because, as I said, the whole world is here. It's not just an African thing. Eh? The whole world is here, which is, I think, people are quite pleased with it. Then, of course, from Nigeria, Ibrahim Abba Zairu from the Public Complaints Commission, Yobe office in Nigeria. Thank you very much for your participation. And then, of course, Advocate Dennis Rampomane from the is an intellectual property lawyer from South Africa. And then, of course, there's Msafiri Ngololo from the Commission of Human Rights and Good Governance in Tanzania. And someone from that is in French. My French is quite limited, and of course we've got someone from Ghana. We've got you've got Uganda. We've got Malawi Ombudsman Office. Grace Malera, thank you for your participation. We also have Simonetta Shitambi from Namibia. And then, of course, Rodriguez Mabjaya from the Ombudsman Office in Mozambique. And, of course, Jonathan Markovich, who is from the State Comptroller and Ombudsman Office of Israel. And then, of course, Ashraf Fikri, who is from the Institutional Mediator of Morocco. And then, of course, we have Romania, I've indicated Romania. We also have Mr. Seko Tidiane Fernandez from Guinea. And then, of course, Aldo Bali from Albania. Then, of course, Burundi, we've got Ferdinand Ndiho Kubwayo. I was quite privileged to visit your country, also under this platform. And we had such a lovely time. I remember the Mukeke fish. Madagascar, we have Madagascar as well. Acknowledge Alain, Madagascar names. I'm not going to even try the surname. They're very long, but thank you for your participation. And of course, Cape Town, Nigeria is also quite, So, but let's have the closing remarks, 1 minute each from the speakers. And then, of course, I think Miss Adonis, I don't know if that you come first, or do they speak first?
I come at the end, Advocate.
Okay, so let's have them.
Thank you.
And yes, and then and then we can have you to wrap things up for us. Just your takeaways on this platform, and of course the concerns. From my side, I can see that this is just not, and I think everybody who's listening was benefiting both in their personal capacity and their institutional capacity. That's a certain, because this looks like it's not a problem for institutions for people generally. But over to any of the profs. I don't know which of the profs is going to start. Prof Sizwe?
Thank
1
you.
minute.
I think my last message for everyone here today is that data protection and cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. It is not just the state's responsibility. It is not just your employer's responsibility. It is not their problem. It is your problem. It is our problem. And, as long as people make cybersecurity an abstract in 2023, they are literally still living in the Stone Age. So we need to really get the word out there that cybersecurity, data privacy are the responsibility of everyone, and this can assist in dealing with the scourge of criminality.
Thank you very much. Prof Maharaj?
Yeah, thank you, colleagues. To build on that point, when somebody wants to drive a car, when you buy your child a car, you make sure they get driving lessons. But yet we give people access to the internet without cybersecurity lessons. Cybersecurity is, the internet's a wonderful tool, technology is a wonderful tool, but we need to train people how to use them. And I think it's irresponsible for countries, and not only ours, all countries, to make access to the internet freely available, because that's a business imperative, but not supported by the social imperative of teaching people how to use it. And that comes back to the point that Sizwe made about it being everybody's problem. Another issue I'll touch on very quickly is, when I sit in forums like this and give talks, and I think, oh, that's obvious. But I often step back and say, listen, it's obvious to me, because it's clearly not obvious to everybody. So what's obvious to me about HTTPS, because this is what I do, it's not obvious to you, Kevin, about HTTPS or the lock. So we mustn't, the cybersecurity professionals, legal professionals like Sizwe or technical professionals like myself, mustn't just think, it's obvious, so everybody should know it. Yes, the information's out there. Information about everything's out there. But we still need forums like this in which to corral that information and be able to direct people properly. So we need more forums like this. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
No, splendid. Yes, I think both speakers couldn't have put it better. This is a problem for all of us, and I've been pleased to participate in this wonderful forum. And you'll have noticed we went over time quite substantially, but deliberately, because the presentations were far too interesting and the discussion was far too interesting to derail it. And it's important that sometimes. And what I do know is the fact that the recording will then be disseminated widely after this. So some people who have not been able to log on, in real time, will be able to watch this now. In the 6 months, 3 years from now, people will still be watching it. So I had to make sure that it's fit for purpose and it's not rushed. And I thank you and of course, thank you to UKZN, thanks to Professor, thank you to Advocate Kalega, the acting private protector, who has had to step out, and of course, Prof, Reddy from the University of Natal. Sorry, I'm old-fashioned. I still remember all names from the University of KwaZulu Natal, KZN, and of course, the organizers for giving us this platform. But I'll hand over to Ms. Marion Adonis and Mr. Franklin Lwelela to conclude proceedings of the day. Thank you very much for your attention. You are muted, ma'am.
My apologies. Thank you, Advocate Malunga. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. We've gathered from different corners of the world for an enlightening webinar on strengthening cybersecurity in Ombudsman institutions. As we conclude this highly
you move from
informative session.
muted to, okay, now we can see you. You are muted and then your face disappeared.
Oh my gosh, my apologies.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Okay. As we conclude this highly informative session, it is my privilege and honor to extend the vote of thanks on behalf of AOMA-AORC. Our first words of appreciation go to Professor Freddie Nyongani. He had to leave early because he had another commitment. He represents the College of Law and Management Studies at the University of KwaZulu, Natal. We thank him for his warm welcome address. His words set the perfect tone for the significant discussion on cybersecurity in Ombudsman institutions. Next, our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Advocate Koleka Kaleka, the Acting Public Protector of South Africa and the Acting Chairperson of the AORC Board. She had to leave early as well because of a prior engagement. Her welcome address was inspiring and motivating, emphasizing the importance of the webinar in enhancing cybersecurity within Ombudsman institutions. We also want to express our sincere thanks to Advocate Kevin Malunga, the former Deputy Public Protector of South Africa, who adeptly guided us through this webinar as the facilitator. We're grateful for your valuable contributions throughout the session. The heart of this webinar lay in the enlightening presentations from our esteemed speakers. Our deepest appreciation goes to Professor Manoj Maharaj from the University of KwaZulu-Natal for shedding light on the significance of cybersecurity for the Ombudsman institutions and just in general, and offering valuable insights into strengthening cybersecurity within the community and personally as well. Equally, we extend our gratitude to Professor Sizwe Snail Kamtuzi from Nelson Mandela University for his insightful discourse on strategies to build resilience and enhance cybersecurity measures within Ombudsman institutions and generally as well. Your expertise has undoubtedly enriched our understanding of this critical subject. The question and answer session, skillfully facilitated by Advocate Malunga, was enriching. We wish to thank all participants for actively engaging in the discussions and contributing to the depth and knowledge shared during the webinars. Last but not least, we extend our sincere thanks to the UKZN Corporate Relations Committee for their hard work and dedication in making this webinar possible. To all participants and attendees, we express our heartfelt gratitude for your participation and keen interest in the topic. Your virtual presence here today reflects a collective commitment to safeguarding our institutions from cyber threats. As we draw this webinar to a close, let us carry forward the knowledge gained here and implement the strategies discussed to fortify cybersecurity within our respective Ombudsman institutions. Once again, thank you all for your virtual presence, insightful contributions, and enthusiasm. We look forward to future webinars and events that will further advance our shared goal of a secure cyber landscape for Ombudsman institutions. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. Thank you. God bless. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Be safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Advocate Kevin. Thank you so much.
Prof, the two
Frankie.
professors, we're having you back. We're having you back. There's too much interest in this topic, if you don't mind.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is
Thank
the end.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.